name's Nick Watts, and I'm the head coach of the Asia Debate Association. And I want to start off by saying thank you for watching this video, and thank you for your interest in debate. Today we'll be discussing a simple question. What is a debater? Now, I consider myself a debater, and I can say with certainty that debate has been the most important activity that I've ever been involved in, and is responsible for much of how I carry myself today and how I see myself. And at first glance, this question does seem as simple as it is. A debater is someone who simply debates. But I don't think this answer is very satisfactory. The amount of time actually spent debating pales in comparison to the amount of time that debaters will spend preparing for debate rounds. Debate rounds themselves are relatively short. Depending on the style of debate, debate rounds can be between 45 minutes, in some certain circumstances can last up to 2 hours. However, I spent months on end preparing for these short debate rounds, and it's this preparation time that I think really sets aside and differentiates the best debaters from debaters who do consider themselves with that simple answer, that simply debating is what makes you a debater. I think that there are a lot of different things that go into making a debater, and I think it would be easy to start off with just describing some of the skills that a debater has. A debater is someone that has a set of skills, both tangible and intangible. By tangible, I mean skills that you can really see. By intangible, I mean skills that are not quite so apparent when first looking at this question. And we'll be talking about both of these. The first skill that I think debaters have are researcher. A capable debater is a person who wants to be informed about the world. Today, many sources of information are filled with claims, but most of those claims are not supported with very many warrants. In my opinion, to be a proper argument, an argument has to have two parts. It has to have a claim and a warrant. And by warrant, I mean evidence. Now, evidence can be in any number of things. It can be a historical example, it can be a statistic, it can be an opinion from a very well-informed individual or someone who has a lot of respect in a certain field. And I think that a debater is someone who understands that their opinions cannot just be made of claims and also have to be supported with the facts that prove that those opinions are valid when faced against other claims that will have differing warrants. This means that a debater is someone who's never fine with reading a source of information that does not have warrants to back up their claims. Today, many sources of arguments in mainstream media are partisan and hide their partisanship by the selective use of evidence. A good debater is able to see through this use of claims in order to understand that the real meat of an argument, or the real reason why an argument is true or not, are the warrants that a certain debater or writer chooses to support their claims with. Overall, this simply means that a debater wants to be informed about the world around them and is never satisfied with simply hearing an opinion of someone else, but always challenges themselves and the people around them to look for warrants and statistics and facts to back up their claims. But having all the right answers is not only what goes into becoming a debater, because a good debater has to be able to deliver these facts and convince people of their facts' validity and the merit of their arguments, which means that the second tangible skill that I'm going to talk about is that of public speaking. A debater is confident when speaking in public and is able to speak with both passion and conviction about their claims and support their claims with warrants, and to present those warrants in a way that judges find compelling and persuasive. This part of being a debater proves that it can't be reduced to only a debate round, because being a public speaker applies in lots of different situations outside of just being a debate round. It seems funny to talk about writing when talking about public speaking, but the same skills that go into becoming a confident public speaker are those same skills that go into being a credible writer, someone that's able to present evidence in a compelling way for judges and the audience. Now, this confidence and passion and authority that I've been talking about is incredibly important for becoming the best debater possible. because it's necessary for a debater, even to win a debate round, to establish a level of credibility in the mind of the judge. And it's this credibility that ultimately is the metric or way of measuring the success of a debater. Having all the right answers and having all the right facts and statistics and having the best research certainly gives you a certain level of credibility in the mind of a judge. But being able to present that evidence passionately is also important. And sometimes a debater that simply speaks more passionately than another debater that may have the better warrants for their arguments may end up winning a debate round. Overall, it's a question of balancing these tangible skill sets. And the best debater will understand that they have to become a capable researcher and a competent public speaker that's able to present their research in a way that people want to listen to. Now, we know some of the tangible skill sets that go into making a debater, but there are also a certain intangible quality to the best debaters out there. And once again, by intangible, I mean something that you can't hold on to, that's not immediately apparent when asking ourselves the question of what is a debater. And the most important intangible skill that I want to talk about today is that of critical thinking. Critical thinking is more of a way of looking at the world and looking at yourself. It's different from regular thinking because critical thinkers challenge themselves always to see all the different possible arguments out there and never to jump to a conclusion simply based on hearing something on television or on the news or simply because an opinion is popular among their peers. A critical thinker always challenges themselves to see every side of a given argument. And debate epitomizes this source of critical thinking. At a given debate tournament, debaters will be given the chance to debate both sides of a given topic. In one round, they may be debating for example, school uniforms. They may be charged with defending why school uniforms are good for students and help the education environment. And the very next debate round, they'll be charged with arguing the exact opposite, that school uniforms are not, in fact, helpful for students or the education environment. This means that even at debate tournaments, students are responsible and may have to defend opinions that they at first do not believe in. In debate, we call this switch side debating, that at any given tournament, you'll switch sides back and forth between the pro and the con, and you'll have to think about the arguments on both sides and think creatively about which arguments you want to utilize, even if you think that one side of this debate, the pro or the con, is overwhelmingly in a better position to be held. Now, this critical thinking does a few things. It forces the debater to look at the world through the eyes of their opponent. And I think this is incredibly important, not only for debate, but for the living in the world at large. This kind of living and walking in your opponent's shoes teaches a debater respect for their opposition. And I think that respect is something that's very important today, especially considering how divisive and how violent some political discussions can become today, and will continue to become more important as those discussions continue to become more divisive into the future. And this respect for your opponent's arguments does a few things for a debater that are very important. It means that debaters will always take seriously another's opinion and never discount someone's claim simply because they don't have the best warrants or warrants that they may not agree with. Even if you don't believe your opponent's arguments are true, as long as you're thinking critically about them, you'll respect that argument and understand that your opponent has reasons for believing and seeing the world the way that they do. And understanding and looking at your opponents through this way allows you to become a better debater because it'll allow you to set aside personal convictions. And instead of arguing from the basis of personal opinion and getting angry with your opponents because they believe differently than you, instead of yelling at them and becoming angry with them, it forces you to think rationally and clearly about the situation. And instead of jumping to conclusions and dismissing your opponent's arguments from the beginning, you can listen to them and carefully argue against them. And hopefully at the end of the discussion, you'll either leave by convincing your opponent that you were correct in the debate round, or you'll leave with simply a better understanding of those people that believe differently about the world than you do. So all these skills have one thing in common, and that's that they're a constant process. These skills are not learned. You don't achieve becoming the best researcher. The best researchers are those individuals that are persistent and are diligent and constantly try to find new and better sources to support their claims. Research is a constant process as new things are constantly happening in the world. And to become an informed individual, one must constantly keep up with what's happening in the world and with the times, because things are constantly changing in this world. Likewise, becoming a better public speaker is a process as well. You'll never be the best public speaker that you can be. There will always be something that you can help to become a better public speaker. And there can always be another way in which you can establish more credibility in the eyes of your audience. Because you have to remember that not all audiences are the same. And that even if under certain circumstances and given a certain kind of audience, maybe one that's sympathetic to your arguments, it may be easier to establish credibility. But think about the situation in which you're arguing in front of an audience that disagrees with your opinion before you've even entered the room. It's much more difficult to establish credibility in the eyes of those individuals that don't treat your arguments with the same respect that I was just talking about, that the best debaters will treat their opponents' arguments. Now, this process that I was talking about is really important, and I think ultimately gives us the answer to what a debater is. In my mind, a debater is simply someone who has the conviction to come up with their own opinions about the world and is informed enough to support those convictions with reasons and warrants that they believe in. This means that someone could be a debater without ever having even debated before. Because like I began this video with, a debater is not simply someone who debates, but it's more of a way of looking at the world. A debater is someone who has respect for themselves and for the opposition, and someone who constantly strives to become more informed about the world, and never simply be okay with simply accepting an opinion that they've heard from a higher source, for example. They always come to themselves. And it's this constant challenging of oneself that I think is at the heart of what makes a debater. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope you learned something today. Once again, my name is Nick Watts with the Asia Debate Association. Bye.